Let's go.
Let's go.
We're never going to get it.
It's not going to work.
Welcome back to another edition of The House That Ellen Built. This is episode 42. I'm Scotty Martin. With me, as always,
Except last week, Greg Vollmer.
That is correct. You weren't here last week. Do you want to explain what was going on with that?
I got a new job here when I moved to Wisconsin. A lot of new things going on with that is new employment. I got a job, started with the USPS as a mail carrier. It was recommended by some friends and family. It's definitely been an experience. I'm only a little over a month into it. I've already got a lot of respect for mail carriers that I didn't have before. All the ins and outs, I didn't know of how much work goes into it. And I've been averaging 25,000 steps a day. Most I've hit was 30,000 3 or 4 days ago. And that's probably just the beginning. I thought I did a lot of steps when I was a mover. And this is going to put me to a whole new level with being starting low on the totem pole and starting brand new again with, a new job. With that comes having to work really crappy hours, quite frankly. I'm working Sundays for the immediate future, probably for the next 6 to 15 months, which sucks because I'm going to miss a lot of Bills games, which is soul wrenching. So I didn't get to see the game live on Sunday against the Raiders, which felt really weird. I had to try to listen to it while I was delivering packages on Sunday because that's my new life on Sundays. Thanks to
Amazon. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's we're going to try to make this work. It's kind of weird. Yeah. Everything is a little off this year. Given, it's the first year of doing our podcast. Our opening year we did in the studio, not having the studio, doing it remote, my work schedule. So long story short, it's just weird. Things are weird right now, but we're working through it. The most important part is we're still going to be talking about Bills football. We're still going to be doing the podcast. With that said, Sunday was what all of Bills Mafia hoped would happen. And it was a major rebound in all areas of the game, most specifically Josh Allen's game.
The Bills came in as 7.5-point favorites. The Raiders really aren't that good. They don't have a ton of depth, and they walloped the Raiders. I mean, it didn't start out great, but the Bills responded exactly how you'd want. After Josh Allen's opening weekend, it really caused a stir among national pundits. I think when the Raiders marched down the field after that first play that Ed Oliver blew up Jacobs, I was like, oh, damn, this is starting out great. Then 4 more plays, they marched down the field and touchdown Devontae Adams. I was like, oh. And then we get the ball. We go 3 and out. To get into our predictions, though, I predicted 30-13 Bills. You predicted 34-10 Bills. The actual score was 38-10. Yeah, we were close, but if we're playing The Price is Right, you win. Wow. So Josh Allen, based on his performance in this game, he was 31 of 37 for 274 yards, 3 touchdowns in the air, and his running backs had a couple more. James Cook had a great game. Both Harris and Murray got in the end zone in the red zone, which we kind of expected. I mean, Cook had 123 yards rushing, and you knew that he was going to be the one between the 20s. I've mentioned it anyway. And with those guys just having that change of pace, battering ram into the end zone, it saves Josh Allen, which Allen tried to jump over his former college teammate, and that didn't work out. But he did win AFC Offensive Player of the Week. That was his 11th time getting Player of the Week, which surpasses Jim Kelly now, who had 10.
And more than Patrick Mahomes. Look at that.
And more than Mahomes, who had 9, and Lamar Jackson's had 8 so far since 2018. Since Mahomes started that year.
And we trade all 11 of those in for a Super Bowl.
And we certainly would. He had 5 career games with 3 passing TDs while completing at least 80% of his passes. This was a game that he basically came close to breaking his own franchise record by 0.1% for completion percentage. He's now at 83.8%, which is the highest for him since the 22 season opener against the Rams. I called it vintage Josh Allen.
Is it vintage Josh Allen who we saw on Sunday, or is it vintage Sugar Rush Allen that we saw on Monday night? Or there are more good performances than bad?
I would say that vintage in the respect that he is now 6-0 after having 3+ turnovers, and he bounces back. He corrects his mistakes. He holds himself accountable. And when I say vintage, it's more about like he was able to take what the defense gave them, but also not need all the crazy flashy plays, while at the same time throwing a sidearm pass to Shakir in the end zone, rolling out, kind of dinking and dunking, and then throwing it to Knox for a touchdown. And Gabe jumped up and got one in the end zone. It was nice to see that he had control since the second drive. And Dorsey drew it up where he was in the shotgun and then he was under center. But we can get to that.
What was the play of the game? Was it Josh Allen's insane throw to Khalil Shakir where he was off balance and just sidearmed it, as it seemed like he was almost falling backwards as the pressure was coming onto him, and he just whipped it, threw it with anticipation somehow, with having to make that split-second decision? Was it that touchdown throw, or was it Matt Milano's puts his arms over the wide receiver and snatches the ball out interception?
I think during the game, it was Matt Milano. It was one of those things that'll just get you to jump up and celebrate, because it was like he mossed him. He literally jumped over his helmet, got the ball, outmanned him, stole his lunch, and just ran an extra handful of yards. And then you just see him celebrate with those giant biceps. And you're like, man, Matt Milano is just a stud. And now you've got Eric Bieniemy raving about him for over a minute during his presser with the Commanders. He's earning national attention. He was first team All-Pro last year for the first time in his career. He's just been a stud. He really has. So hats off to him. He's still the best player on the defense. I know Poyer and Hyde are 32 and getting older and captains and all that, but Milano he is the only reason why we can easily forget that we had Tremaine Edmonds. And now with Terrell Bernard doing well and getting his first interception, it was just a great game overall. I mean, for Allen, when I say vintage, he's also very good at getting the defense to jump off sides. He does it for a free play, and then he threw that pass to Gabe, and then they just declined the penalty because it was better.
He learned from one of his idols,
Aaron Rodgers with the hard count. There's no doubt he has studied him, and he's also good at distributing the ball, which Aaron's done a lot of. So he sold some fakes. He threw it to Knox. He's done 9 different receivers he threw the ball to, which is great distribution. Now, when we see Sam Howell last week, he distributed the ball to 10 different people, and he's got his top 3, his trio of receivers that we got to really look out for. In addition to Josh Allen has to watch out for that defensive front. But we'll get into that in the next episode when we do our preview. One of my favorite plays from Josh was probably his pump fake. It was not a little pump fake. It was a full-on throw with his hand, and held it, brought it back up, and threw it to, I want to say, Diggs for a first down. It was just a beautiful play.
I'm glad that after the long week that was the post Monday Night Football, where we had more negatives than positives, it's refreshing to have a vintage McDermott Allen Bean era game where we blow the brakes off of someone, because I think we've had enough heartbreaking losses. And I'll put the Monday Night Football game into that category of the likeness of a wild card game against the Texans, or a loss in the regular season against the Vikings, or the Monday Night Football regular season loss against the Titans. That, 13 seconds, like, it's maybe being dramatic putting the Monday Night Football loss into the 13 seconds category. But I'm just saying, games that went wrong for whatever reason. But there have been plenty of those games against teams that, quite frankly, are less than us, based on the last 5 years. And I would say the Raiders are, and even the Commanders are. I'm just saying we've beaten teams by pretty large margins. And I think that's kind of spoiled us at times. Spoiled me for sure. But I think it's good. It's good because it feels like we're back to normal, right? Because we, for 10, 11, 12, 13 games of what we're used to seeing this team win on a yearly basis now for the last couple of years, I start to get spoiled. And where you get the Monday night games, and then you start to remember what those feel like. And I definitely overreacted.
You overreacted? No.
Yeah. But it does feel good to have a lot of positives, and not be panicking about, Josh Allen not adjusting or Dorsey not adjusting. It feels good that we had a running back that looked as capable as James Cook did. He racked up big time yardage, because we don't get that many 100-yard running games. James Cook looked productive in the running game. We also had Harris and Murray get in on the action. Harris gets a touchdown in the red zone to kind of take some of that battering off of Allen, like we had kind of hoped going into the season. That was the whole point of getting Murray and Harris. Just let them take those inside the 5 carries instead of putting the risk on Allen doing something stupid, even though we love to see the excitement of him Superman in someone. Everything seemed to go according to plan this week, whereas Monday night against the Jets, nothing went according to plan. Everything went according to plan in this game. Allen rebounded, and his completion percentage was through the roof. Our run game was awesome. When you've got Allen clicking and then our run game clicking in the same game, that's amazing. And then the defense was opportunistic when it mattered with Milano. Give some flowers to Ed Oliver. I've got to give flowers to Ed Oliver because I was definitely critical of the offseason move of paying him all that money.
But he has been living up to his new contract so far. I feel like, that's probably one of the defining things about our defense so far. They get a ton of pressure, but again, 0 sacks. Tons of pressure, but they're not getting to him. Maybe they miss Von Miller that much. Rousseau had a nice tip, which was an interception. We had another fumble recovery late in the 4th quarter I can't say seal it because it was already out of control, but the defense did a lot of good things. Milano's now recorded an interception in 3 straight regular season games dating back to last season. It's the first time that it's happened since Kiko Alonso in 2013. With Milano stealing that guy's lunch, I just feel like that was one of the plays of the season, not just that game. Obviously, the first game, there were still good things that happened, like the 2-minute drill to tie it back up. That was big. It was mostly the damn turnovers, 3 interceptions and a fumble. You're not going to win too often. The fact that they even went to overtime goes to show you how much they can do right. And if they correct those small things, with Allen having 0 turnovers, you're going to win a lot of games. And with him distributing the ball to 9 people and not just Diggs didn't even lead the team in receptions. It was UCF's Gabe Davis and the offense with 29 first downs. They were 7 of 13 on 3rd down, which just like last year, they're leading the league in that. It's anything above 50% is like awesome. And they're 54% with 450 yards. I'll take that anytime. And close to 200 rushing yards. A lot of that 123 is coming from Cook. But do you remember Josh Allen running? No, he ran into a sack, but otherwise he just rolled out. He does so well.
I don't remember. No, because I was listening to the game on my ear pods. It is not the same.
With Gabe Davis leading, he had 6 receptions out of 7 targets for 92 yards and a touchdown. And he just showed he had some really strong hands, tough grabs.
That 4th down play where Allen threw across his body again, and then he came towards Allen and got it right at the goal line. Amazing.
Yep. And if you look at the replay, Allen's directing him on where to go, and that's what he's really good at. And Diggs, he reminds me of what Beasley did. I'll bet you Cole Beasley taught him to preserve his body, because even though he's top 3 in the league right now for yak yards, a lot of times he gets what he can, and then as soon as he sees contact, he gets down. And you know what? He doesn't get injured. So for longevity reasons, I could not get on him for preserving his body. Even if it was only 66 yards, he now surpasses Thurman Thomas. I know he's a running back, but still, he's a Hall of Famer. 6th all-time in receiving yards in franchise history with 4,341 yards. So good on you, Diggs. Yep. And our rookie tight end, Dalton Kincaid, got whacked several times. He took some hits. He also delivered some hits, and he blocked really well. For a rookie, he's ahead of the game. A lot of times they start off slow, but with him, they're mixing him in, not just as like a blocker or an occasional like slot receiving tight end, but he's doing a lot of it. And he might have to do more, because looking at the injury report, Dawson Knox, who's had a history of back injuries, didn't practice Wednesday or Thursday. So if he gets a limited practice in Friday, maybe he plays. If not, I'm sure they'll just focus on 11 personnel or bring in Quentin Morris, who can do just fine as far as a serviceable tight end who's going to do a lot of blocking and even has some good hands. He's pretty athletic. He's not the other 2 guys. Anyway,
we're just getting started with Kincaid too. Like, this is just the beginning. I have a feeling you come 2 months from now, it's going to be just a completely different level of involvement and what we're talking about with him. So I just think, and it's not just because I have him on my fantasy team, on one of my fantasy teams.
He's had 6 targets.
Yeah, it's pretty modest right now, but you can just tell. I just feel like the momentum, it's going to be slowly building, like a small snowball that's building, just keeps on going down the hill and gaining momentum, getting bigger as the season goes on.
I'm hoping that Khalil Shakir comes on, because we really wanted him to last year, and he kind of flashed a little bit. He's so little, like he's ripped. He's got a small frame, but he's strong. But he came in clutch. If he gets one catch every 2 games and it's a touchdown, I'll take it, or if he's just getting a first down and moving the chains 3 times a game, he's doing his job. We've got enough other people, Sherfield and Hardy, who remain kind of quiet, but you still have Diggs, you still have Davis, you still have Kincaid, you still have Knox, you still have Hook, who can catch the ball, and the other 2 aren't bad. I mean, Harris might be third in the pecking order behind Murray, because he comes in there for 33 years oldest running back in the league. He runs fresh and hard. If you saw that touchdown, he bulldozed his way. Nobody was going to stop him. And then Harris had his first kickoff return for 41 yards. That was great to see.
Yeah.
I don't mind that. If we have him doing that and he sets us up in other ways and we still get him 6 or 7 carries a game, fine. As long as we keep Allen healthy and rotate the running backs and let them do whatever. Speaking of Allen being healthy, there were 2 sacks in the game, and it wasn't even that front 4, the line. It was the linebackers. So Spencer Brown, hats off to him. Max Crosby does go on both sides of the line. So he'll go over to Dawkins' side, and then he'll come back over to Spencer. And they did some chips. Kincaid helped out. The other lineman helped out. Hats off to Spencer Brown. I mean, he really...
a lot of heat from a lot of Bills fans, and he looked the part on Sunday. I hope it continues.
That's the problem with him, is the team has been very protective of him, and they give him all the opportunity in the world. 6'7", the size he is, he's just a mule. Like, it's just so strong. If he stayed healthy, a lot of times he gets these nicks, and actually in practice on Thursday, he hurt his shoulder. But Spencer Brown did great. James Cook, of course, we can't say enough. 7.2 yards per carry. The team averaged over 5 yards a carry. Cook had 84 yards after initial contact. He was elusive. I don't know if you saw the one, the Raiders number 0, which is now allowed. He was going right at him, just kind of outran him. He just literally didn't even juke him. He just turned on the afterburners and got around the outside and got a first down and put his head down. It was awesome. And then Murray, when he did score, he had 8 consecutive seasons of 4+ rushing touchdowns. So he already has 1 in 2 games. He's likely going to be the only running back in the league to have 9 seasons in a row of 4+ touchdowns, at least active players.
That'd be wild.
And now let's get into the Dorsey call that I feel was, as much as he quieted the haters, he did have a couple questionable calls in the red zone where they moved Josh Allen into shotgun, where they had been putting him under center a handful of times. And I thought that was really cool. Actually, more than a handful of times. But in the red zone, you want him under center because he can do the tush push like the Eagles perfected. And they didn't use
Davis
it.
Goes into motion and then comes behind him.
But in this case, that's not what happened. I mean, they handed the ball off and he got stuffed on 3rd down. They were in shotgun. On 4th down, he tried to force the ball into Knox because Hardy fell over. The play was designed for Hardy. But there was another time where Allen, where we talked about it earlier, where he tried to jump over his former teammate, Marcus Epps from Wyoming, and he caught him. He got right there in the end zone. Yep. It was goofy. It was hilarious. It was funny. I mean, he didn't end up getting hurt, which, there's a time and a place to do those moves. I don't know why he was trying to posterize his buddy, but it didn't work there. But what did work is that 3rd quarter, they ate up 12 minutes out of the 15 minutes. The defense went up to Josh Allen. Micah Hyde was mic'd up, and he was like, dude, as much as we want to rest, we still want to play, man. But no, that was great to see that they could drive down and do that. And it was nice to see McDermott call a timeout and change his plan. He was going to kick a field goal on 4th and short. Then they went for it, and that's where they got one of the touchdowns. I believe that's the one that Gabe Davis jumped up and got. It was nice to see more 12 personnel, nice to see a good mix of plays. We only punted once, so Sam Martin didn't have to do any flailing around, and we didn't have to worry about any punt returns. So
you didn't have to worry about any pansy pushes.
No, it was a nice 54-yard punt inside the 20. Good to go. And I hope that we have several games this year where he doesn't have to punt at all. The fact that in a professional sport, out of 60 minutes, you have the ball for 40 minutes, 2/3 of the time, that is dominance. And there wasn't even Garoppolo did have some turnovers. He had 1 TD and 2 interceptions, but he wasn't sacked. There was pressure, but not like the pressure where you're pushing on Jimmy. He did have to get the ball out, and the ball was tipped several times. And can you believe that Jimmy G has not been been sacked yet this year.
That's crazy.
That is crazy. Yeah. I mean, they had 13 first downs to our 29, and they had 39 plays. I just feel like Josh Jacobs, the defending rushing champion, finished the game with 9 rushes for -2 yards. That is the first time in NFL history, or at least since 1970, that the reigning NFL rushing champion was held at negative yards. But he did have 5 receptions for 51 yards. So overall, he did have a net positive. That was unreal to see the defense do so well against the run. If you take away the 83-yard run for Breece Hall week 1, their run defense is picking up where it left off last year and then some. Occasionally, you're going to get one of these. It was obviously a bad alignment, like we mentioned in the recap of week 1, but I'll take it. Anyway, Terrell Bernard, what did you think of his first career interception?
I mean, it was good. It was a good reaction. It got tipped. Who tipped it? Oliver or Floyd?
I believe that was Greg Rousseau who tipped it.
Rousseau got it. Yes, I mean, it was a good reaction. He anticipated it. I'm just impressed overall with the rush, even though, like you said, like kind of just historically, we whether it's the 13-second game or some of those playoff games where we get so close and we're not getting the sacks, feels like we're off to a good start. And clearly, I feel like the experiment with McDermott as a defensive coordinator seems to be going well. We're only 2 games in, so it's like trying not to react too negatively to what happened on Monday, not trying to react too positively to what happened on Sunday. Kind of like Alan saying after some of the games, like, yeah, it's not as bad as you think it is. It's not as good as you think it is. We played a team that's going to be inferior to a lot of the teams that are coming up on our schedule, especially the second half. I don't want to overlook the Commanders because they're a very good team and they're not someone you want to sleep on. You got new ownership. There's a new energy in the building, it seems. Howell is definitely playing well. But I'm already thinking about the Dolphins game because I think that's going to be an early season measuring stick. I thought the Jets game could be a measuring stick, and quite frankly, well, that didn't obviously go the way we thought it would. And
all that Jets game told us was that when Allen's off, we're going to lose. When Allen's on, we can beat anyone. I mean, it wasn't just because we played the Raiders. Yeah, we beat them by 4 touchdowns, but we could play Mahomes and beat him in regular season. Can we do that same performance in the playoffs and then not blow a 13-second lead? I think so. Yeah. And when they're going well, I mean, we were worried about losing Edmonds. Then Bernard comes in. Of course, linebackers get a lot of tackles, but he led the team in tackles and he had a pass defense. It was a good game for him. Second game, encouraging to get your first interception. He is undersized. He's more of like a safety, but they've been using 3 linebacker / 3 safety sets with Taylor Rapp out there a lot, not just Taron Johnson. And that makes me wonder what they're going to do if one of them gets injured or if they're going to have to slide people around, because Bernard got banged up. I believe his lower leg, who knows what it is, but he's been limited for 2 days in a row with his knee and quad. Maybe what's his name? Christian Kirksey could fill in. Oh, wait a minute. He just up and retired. He pulled a Vontae Davis.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Anyway, we re-signed AJ Klein to our practice squad. He will almost certainly be elevated for backup, even though Kirksey wasn't the first 2 games, and he was probably upset by that. The week that he could actually step in as a starter, he retires. Who knows? Maybe it'll come out that he had some injury, or maybe he was just like, you know what? I don't want to be a depth guy. I was in the league for 9 years. It was a bit shocking and surprising, but I'm okay with having AJ Klein. A lot of us were worried about him starting, but I think having him as depth is awesome because he knows the system. He's been here 2020, 2021, 6 games last year, and now he's back for this year, and we could use him. Will Bernard be healthy enough? We don't know. Either way, I feel better knowing that we have Klein and Tyrell Dodson still. Can't forget that Dodson was battling it out for the starting job at inside linebacker, but it ended up going to Bernard, who's obviously done well. That's what we need from our guys. We need him to stay healthy. When we had 8 people, 10 people on the injury report, people are starting to get nervous. But if you're looking at it, Jordan Phillips missed on Wednesday because of an illness, and then he practiced full Thursday. And then you look and, James Cook, he was out. No, it was a personal day. He literally, his girlfriend or wife had a baby. So congrats to him. And Spencer Brown, he came up, he worked full on Wednesday and came up limited on Thursday with the shoulder. So Friday will be telling as far as if he'll be ready or not. And Dawson Knox, like I said, with his back. Otherwise, I mean, we're still in healthy, overall good shape. We've got great depth, and that was why we were a Super Bowl favorite last year. Even though we're getting slept on this year, I just feel like Micah Hyde, by the way, did say that he was mic'd up, and he's like, he went up to Allen, and he was like, look at that. What a way to respond. You know, people be sleeping on us. And it's just good to see an overall performance like that where they get back, you know, we finally get a win, and it's in the AFC. It does matter. Obviously, losing that home opener in your division is not ideal, but we will see them again. We will still probably finish 4-2 in the division, and then let's get a number 1 seed. Let's focus on getting there. But I really want to be healthy and go into playing the Commanders with as much as we can. And
I wanted Trust McDermott to get a number 1 seed, but so far, man, every year there's been a game or two that have just and you know, I didn't want that one game to be the first game of the season this year, but we've got plenty more to go.
I don't mind it because it kind of checked our own guys. It kept them humble. They actually kind of feed off of being doubted. That's why maybe we didn't do as hot last year when it mattered most.
Set it up. They set themselves up after Monday for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the week 1 was bad. It was ugly, and then week 2 was fantastic. So it makes you not quite forget week 1, but it gives you a lot more hope knowing the direction and the potential on the offense when we play a clean game. And I think if Allen focuses on little to no turnovers for most of the season, look out. He could be offensive player of the year. And maybe let's hope that he's capable of getting back into the MVP race.
We know he's capable of all those things. Games like last Monday night, the opening Monday night, brings bring that PTSD. Like it brings you back to 2018 of like 2018, 2019 of like, yeah, the sugar rush Allen, as it's been phrased famously by Kyle Brandt and others. Yeah, you don't want that PTSD to come back. You want to see the games like this where Allen, you're like, okay, Allen is 6 years in and he has learned and he has gotten mature and he knows to do the right thing in these situations. So, you know, are they as good as they played on Sunday against the Raiders? It's not going to be that way every Sunday. We know that. But they're not as bad as they showed on Monday night against the Jets. It could be somewhere in between. Who knows? But yeah, if Allen limits the turnovers, if we have a healthy run game, and if our defense continues to play opportunistic under McDermott, it's only going to get better if we can stay healthy, and that's for everybody. There's so many injuries right now around the league in general, but once we get Von Miller back, then it's full systems go.
And speaking of that, we are entering week 3, and he will be out at least the first 4 weeks. Maybe he'll be back week 5 or 6, but man, if our defense plays as well as it did this past week, it'll hold most people to under 21 or so. And if we can score at least 30, I think they said on the broadcast that the Bills averaged 31 points per game over the last season at home. So they do really well in Orchard Park.
How fun would it be to see Von Miller? Granted, he's going to be on a snap count when he does get back. How fun would it be to see him back on the field in a Bills uniform on Sunday night against the Giants?
Man, I would love that. Speaking of the Giants, we watched Thursday Night Football, and Dable, they fought hard against a really good Niners team. Their defense is solid. Their offense is also solid. To just think they have McCaffrey and they've got Mr. Irrelevant. Brock Purdy is just doing really well. He threw a great pass to Deebo Samuel for a touchdown. It was tight until that fourth quarter, and then they
eventually the better team looked like the better team, and Christian McCaffrey is so much fun to watch.
But every time he gets the ball, I worry about. I look to see if he comes up lame because he gets used. He's so strong and so quick.
He's got an injury history, but oh my God, he's fun. If I wouldn't have drafted Bijan Robinson and I took a big risk drafting a rookie over, it would have been Christian McCaffrey. I'm not going to say I'm some Nostradamus or whatever. All offseason when I was mock drafting, I did draft Jamar Chase. But every time I drafted Jamar Chase, I just had this bad feeling. I don't know if it felt like it was too easy of a pick because everyone said if you've got the number 2 pick in 12-man league, you got to get Jamar Chase if Jefferson goes. But like every time I picked him, I just didn't feel good about it. And then I also like even Burrow, I'm just like, something felt like every time I thought about it, I'm like, I don't like this pick. Even though Jamar Chase, it seems like that would be the safe pick. That's a smart pick, right? He's going to could beat Jefferson this year in fantasy. I just ultimately, I decided to take Jamar Chase completely out of the equation for my number 2 overall pick. and it was between Christian McCaffrey and Bijan Robinson, and I went Bijan Robinson, which so far is not the right decision. I mean, Christian McCaffrey is looking. Bijan's looking great, but Christian McCaffrey is still that seasoned veteran that's just been there, and they just utilize him in so many different ways in San Francisco, and now he looks really comfortable under that Shanahan scheme. So
he really does. That's the most dangerous part. Is CMC is just a well-rounded guy. If you watch during the Thursday night game, he actually swapped with Samuel, where Debo went into the backfield and then McCaffrey's out there in the slot and then out wide. I mean, he's just versatile like that, and he's so good. He, even before week 3, he leads the league in rushing with 268 yards, and number 2 is Bijan Robinson with like 182. But there's that much of a gap between 1 and 2.
Yeah,
it's crazy. I mean,
yeah.
I love seeing somebody like that do so well.
I ultimately drafted Bijan because of the injury concerns, even though I watched the tape. I went and I'm a nerd, but when I couldn't decide who I wanted to take at number 2. So I started watching the highlights of last year. I watched the Jamar Chase highlights from last year. Then I watched the Christian McCaffrey highlights, and then I watched Bijan's highlights from Texas. Watching Jamar Chase, I don't know what it was, but it was boring. I'm not being down on him or his talent or the Bengals or Joe Burrow, but like I watched Justin Jefferson's highlights just in case he was going to be available at number 2. And he was fun to watch, but I don't know. There's just something about Jamar Chase's highlights where I'm just like, that's not. I know he's not a boring player, but it just wasn't. It didn't pop out like Christian McCaffrey's highlights and Bijan's and Jefferson, you know. But yeah, ultimately Christian McCaffrey, if he stays healthy, I think will be the bell cow. Will be the number 1 for running backs. But Bijan has looked fantastic in his short so far career with
he's got that shake and bake moves. I mean, if you watch in the game, he had like 4 jukes in one play, and he just reminds me so much of Barry Sanders. One cut. I haven't seen any like the spins and wiggle like Sanders, but he runs a lot like him in other ways.
This is turning into the fantasy football corner, which is good because we haven't talked fantasy yet in this young season. And he had everything last week except for the touchdowns. Week 1, he got 1 touchdown, an awesome receiving touchdown, but Tyler Algier vultured 2 touchdowns in the red zone, which pissed off, of course, all Bijan owners. That's the sick game you play as a fantasy football player, watching your stud do all the work, and then the RB2 walks in and gets the points that you should have had. So
look, that does suck, but when you have Bijan, if he can do what we want James Cook to do between the 20s, and you let someone else score, obviously he's still going to get his touchdowns. But Algier's no slouch. He had 1,000 yards in his rookie season, and I think the 1-2 punch is what makes them the most dangerous, because even if Bijan was to go down or vice versa, you have the other that can get 1,000 yards for you, and then you still have Drake London and Kyle Pitts if they ever decide to throw the ball to him. They've got a good team. Arthur Smith, man. I mean, the team, I feel like I felt that way about the Saints watching them in the preseason too. I'm like, they've got Olave and Michael Thomas is back and healthy. And if Carr can do at minimum what he did for the Raiders, the team is going to do well. And then they obviously have Alvin Kamara and, Jamal Williams. Their backfield is
Kendre Miller, the rookie, Kendre Miller, 3rd rounder.
It's still a nightmare right now. But after Alvin Kamara comes back week 4, maybe Miller has the starting role by then, and then
I am excited to see Kendre Miller's debut this weekend.
I know you got him, so you got him one of the bottom dwellers in free agency, right?
Yeah, I got him in both my leagues, so I'm excited because I did watch his tape as well in the offseason, and he's exciting to watch. He's explosive. He's not quite as explosive as a Jahmyr Gibbs, but he's pretty damn talented.
Speaking of which, Gibbs is going to get a majority of the carries this weekend, and
Montgomery's nicked up.
He's on your bench in our league anyway. And then in my CBS league, which I've done ESPN. I almost exclusively do Yahoo. I've done it for 23 years now. This year I'm doing a family league for my wife's uncle, and I drafted Nick Chubb. And of course you have to wait until waivers in that league as opposed to our league where it's cutthroat. It's right away. Yeah. And I missed out by 30 seconds, and I didn't get Jerome Ford. I did get him during the game in the Yahoo League. I missed out on Jerome Ford, and that was a bummer. And then I ended up not really getting a backup. I'm looking at Akers, who's on waivers right now, to see how he does against the Vikings. And then in my Yahoo League, I still have him, and I could use him as trade bait. I'm deep there. I've got Austin Eckler, and I've got Derrick Henry, and now I had Jerome Ford on my bench, and I also have Javonte Williams if he ends up continuing to progress, which I think he is. I think he looked good. We'll see.
You and I played each other in your league this weekend. How did that go?
So in week 2, it was an early battle against Greg, and I was projected to win by like 10 or 5, and I had the lead the whole weekend. We go into the Monday night game.
I sat Garrett Wilson. Bad mistake.
You sat George Pickens and you sat Garrett Wilson, and you somehow made the right decision to start the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, who got you like 29 points and the victory.
I drafted them, so I hope I.
You did draft him. I thought you picked him up. Okay,
I drafted him.
Hats off to you. It came down. It was literally like 76%. I have a chance of win, and then it switched.
Yeah,
and
you had Elijah Moore going. You needed Elijah Moore to hit. I had Chris Olave going. Before that game got over, then it was just down between Steelers defense and your Elijah Moore.
And I had the victory. I had 1 point above you, and there was almost no chance you were going to win. And then TJ Watt ran back a defensive touchdown. His first one ever, I think. TJ Watt is one of those guys that like Micah Parsons and maybe Chase Young this weekend. Who knows? I just worry with guys like that. They can wreck a game themselves. That's it. Max Crosby, we were able to contain him. Can we do that with Montez Sweat and Duran, and then Chase Young? I mean, they just have those front 4 guys that are studs. Anyway, we can talk about that in the next episode. Any other fantasy talk you want to get into?
Every year, I think I'm so prepared going into a draft, and then every year, I don't know, I panic at some point in the draft, but I panicked a little bit in my SDSU draft because I missed out on tight end. I missed out on the waves of tight end in the first 6 rounds, which is where I wanted to try to get one. And instead I kind of went wide receiver heavy and ended up getting
Sam Laporta.
Well, I picked him up in free agency. Someone drafted him, then dropped him. So I picked up Sam Laporta, which I'm very happy about so far. And then I also drafted Kincaid. So I've got 2 rookies, and I'm waiting to see which is going to be the cream of the crop before I ultimately probably drop one of them, just because I only have 5 bench spots in that league as opposed to 6 in yours. So but as of now, I'm riding the 2 rookies to see kind of, like I said, which rises to the top. Sam Laporta looks great so far. He's benefiting from kind of a depleted wide receiver group with Jamison Williams suspended once again. And you've got the Sun God, who's kind of nicked up right now. They just don't have many options outside of Amon-Ra St. Brown. They've got an old Marvin Jones. So anyways, Sam Laporta's looked great as a rookie so far. So yeah, that's my only comment there, I guess. Just the rookie tight end stepping in and producing, which is fun to see. And I do, like I said earlier in the podcast, I think that we've yet to see, the best is yet to come with Kincaid. He's just starting to warm up. I'm excited to see what November, December has in store when we finally start to see him in fantasy. Past that, I'm in running back hell in my SDSU league. I've got Dameon Pierce, who I took a chance on in the 5th round. I thought he was going to be a steal in the 5th round. And of course, his offensive line is injured. And the Texans, I should have known the Texans were going to be shitty and playing from behind. So that has not been good. Bijan is who I took in the 1st as kind of an anchor RB strategy. And then I went very wide receiver heavy with Chris Olave, Calvin Ridley, and then I went DJ Moore and Drake London. So I've got 4 on paper stellar wide receivers. I went with a hero RB strategy where I took Bijan in the 1st, and then I kind of strayed away from running back until later. But well, not necessarily. I did kind of a hybrid. You can't really say I didn't really do zero RB, and I kind of didn't do hero RB because in the 5th, Dameon Pierce was still sitting there, and I took him. And I'm like, well, that'll be my, then I'll be good. And then I'll just keep on going wide receiver, tight end until later. And then I'll start taking my home run lottery picks on like your Kendra Millers, clearly, which hasn't worked yet. I should have taken Jerome Ford as my lottery pick. Hindsight's 2020. Anyways,
Well, they were raving about Jerome Ford in the preseason, but nobody really thought that it made sense because Nick Chubb is just such a bell cow, and he's just, I mean, he's got to be a future Hall of Famer. He's so good, and then to get that nasty injury, it was just so bad to see him
I
hyperextend
don't
his
know.
knee, tear all of his ligaments.
I got really into the zero RB strategy this offseason. I don't know, every offseason now as a drafter, because I'm trying to like keep ahead of the league, because your leagues get better and players start to get more savvy, and everyone starts to get better as time goes on. And so I looked really big into the zero RB strategy this year, which I usually don't. I'm usually very much a robust RB draft and kind of a balanced drafter. The zero RB strategy, it's got its perks and it seems interesting when you look into it, but you're banking on injuries, which I don't like. You're literally banking on your other league mates who drafted those running backs in the first 4 rounds, getting what happened to Nick Chubb. Then, you've got their handcuff. And so as they get worse, you get better as the season goes on. That's on the surface, the strategy behind it. But yeah, then you're wishing on injury, which is not good. So I don't know. I don't know what the best strategy is in fantasy. I think fantasy is so unpredictable. It's maybe there's not a best strategy.
My strategy this year was not to draft any Bills players in the Yahoo League because I hardly do. I'm going to watch them anyway. So you want an excuse to watch other games and be invested in it.
For context, for everyone listening, the Yahoo League he's referring to, there's like about half the league are Bills fans. It's a 12-person league, and what? 6-7 people are Bills fans. So,
but one of them is also a Packers fan, and another one's a Packers fan, and then there's a Cowboys fan, and there's someone who's a Bills fan but lives in Dallas. You get a mix of
Bills
people.
Heavy. It went Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes with the first 2 picks.
Yes, it did. So I did not obviously get them. I ended up drafting Lamar Jackson, which has not been a mistake, and I feel like the offensive coordinator is going to drop more passes, and he's reminding people that he does still have an arm. Even though he's one of the best, if not the best, dual threat quarterback, I do think for fantasy purposes, he's going to pay off. I mean, he's got Zay Flowers. He's got OBJ when he's healthy.
Zay Flowers looks great, by the way.
Yes, he does. And Rashad Bateman, who's kind of been shaky so far because he's coming off of an injury. And they also have had the injury bug again with what? J.K. Dobbins went out.
J.K. Dobbins.
So with Dobbins going down and Gus Edwards coming in, and then you've just got some moving parts there. So I'm glad I took Lamar though. It gave me other players to focus on in the other rounds. And my in the CBS league, I actually drafted Josh Allen. I want to say in the 2nd round, or it might even have been at the end of the 1st round because I had the 11th pick. So I got the 11th and the 14th, and I think he was available the 14th. And it paid off this week, where week 1, obviously I lost because of that. Fantasy overall has been fun. You see a lot of the rookies each year. You take gambles on like you did with Bijan, and that he was the closest thing to a sure thing for running backs that I don't think it was that much of a gamble, except for it was a number 2 pick where in the CBS league, I think he went 10th. Right before me. I would have taken him if he fell to 11.
That's where he should have gone. So that's where I say it's a risk, in that because I had the number 2 overall pick, his ADP was more like 6, 7 to 10 range instead of 2. So I reached by about 5 or 6 picks. But if he ends up doing great, then who cares?
All right. Well, as far as Josh Allen cards, I mean, I've got his rookie downtown photo that you can look at and see here. It's obviously not the actual card because that goes for a lot of money, like $4,000 plus. Is there anything else you want to add before we leave? Maybe your opinion on what Davante Adams said about Taylor Rapp, who popped Adams in the 4th quarter and gave him a concussion. So he's in concussion protocol this week. He said it was an unnecessary hit and that somebody like him just flies around the field, playing from the other half of the field and just playing reckless, out of control football.
I mean, I don't think Davante Adams has done enough to know truly what kind of player Rapp is. He was speaking out of emotion, and with that said, Rapp deserved to get a fine.
Yeah, but if you watch that same game, he had a teammate that popped Kincaid unnecessarily, so it's no different. I mean, the secondaries are going to do that sometimes. The safeties are trying to pop the ball out. They want to get you to lose the ball. Just like in that game, Dane Jackson actually came in the 4th quarter and is the one who forced the fumble that Taylor Rapp actually picked up.
It's an extension of frustration of a player who's knows he's at the peak of his athletic ability and the peak of his career, and he probably has a feeling that he's not going to see the rewards that he wants to at this point in his career, given his current situation and the landscape of the AFC. So he's probably just kind of letting frustrations boil over as well. So
yeah, for sure. I mean, he came to the Raiders for his college teammate Derek Carr, and obviously that didn't work out, and he's stuck there playing for someone that he doesn't necessarily want to be there and play with. Anyway,
yeah, I mean, him and Rodgers both chose the money, and well, it got him a lot of money. But as far as accolades on the field, it hasn't probably been very advantageous for either of them.
Yeah, speaking of money, I can think of a wide receiver who played in Arizona and went to Tennessee, and he said he wanted to win, and he rallied to possibly join the Bills, but he ended up saying, okay, I'll take the bag and I'll go to Tennessee. Can you think of who I'm talking about?
DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, DeAndre Hopkins. Well, good luck in Tennessee playing for the Titans. I like the coach. It's not a bad team, but they're not going to be what it could have been if he were to come over at a discount. But
yeah, oh well, it wasn't meant to be.
The Bills' victory in week 2 and a bounce back was meant to be. This is going to wrap up week 2 of the Buffalo Bills recap, and we're going to get into the Bills versus Commanders game up next. So that's going to do it for this edition of the House at Allenville. I'm Scott Martin, and with me, as always,
Greg Vollmer.
Let's go.
Oh, Buffalo. All right, there we go.
You got me feeling like I'm Josh Allen. Yeah. What? You got me feeling like I'm Josh. Okay. You got me feeling like I'm Josh Allen. Yeah. Josh. Got me feeling like I'm who? Josh. Yeah. Josh Allen.